The Council of Fools, the emergency council chamber aboard the massive Zephyrian flagship Stellar Dominion, buzzed with nervous energy. 12 different species had gathered in the gleaming metallic hall, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and electronic translations. The holographic star map in the center showed a disturbing sight. Red markers spreading across the outer rim like a disease, each one representing another world fallen to the Scarian Empire. Dr. Elena Vasquez sat quietly in the human delegation's corner, her dark eyes scanning the data streams flowing across her tablet. At 34, she had spent the last decade studying xenobiology and alien warfare patterns. Her small frame and soft voice often made others underestimate her, but Elena possessed one of the sharpest minds in the Colonial Defense Force. She had requested this emergency session 3 weeks ago. Now, watching the alien representatives argue in circles, she wondered if it was already too late. Admiral Kextar dominated the center of the room. The Zephyrian commander stood nearly 3 meters tall, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the light as he gestured with 4 arms toward the hologram. His species had ruled this sector for over 2 centuries, and their technological superiority had made them arrogant. The Scarian advance follows predictable patterns, he declared, his voice resonating through the translation matrix. Our combined fleets possess superior firepower. A direct assault on their primary staging grounds will cripple their expansion. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The beetle-like Corvani clicked their approval, while the gaseous ethereals pulsed with supportive colors. Elena shifted in her seat, checking her prepared presentation one more time. The data was clear, but she knew these beings valued strength over subtlety. "If I may," Elena said, rising from her chair. Her voice carried clearly despite its quiet tone, and the translation matrix amplified it throughout the chamber. Several alien heads turned toward her with expressions ranging from polite interest to barely concealed annoyance. Admiral Kextar's 4 eyes fixed on her with obvious impatience. "Dr. Vasquez, we appreciate the human perspective, but this requires military expertise, not academic theory." Elena stepped forward, activating her personal hologram projector. Images of Scarian biology appeared in the air. Detailed scans of their cellular structure, neural networks, and most importantly, their collective consciousness matrix. "Admiral, with respect, this isn't about theory. The Scarians aren't just another military force, they're a bio-integrated collective. Their ships, their weapons, even their soldiers, everything is grown, not built." She manipulated the display, showing microscopic footage of Scarian biomatter. 3 weeks ago, I analyzed debris from the Kestrel colony attack. The Scarians didn't just conquer that world, they converted it. The entire planetary ecosystem was transformed into a single organism serving their collective will. This isn't conquest, it's assimilation. General Vorth's image flickered in the holographic communication array. The massive Scarian warlord's scarred face showed amusement rather than concern. His species had evolved from hive insects, but had developed individual consciousness while maintaining their collective abilities. "The small human speaks of things beyond her understanding," he transmitted, his words carrying the subtle pheromone markers that indicated mockery in Scarian culture. "We do not conquer. We improve. We integrate. Soon all will be part of the greater design." Elena felt her jaw tighten, but she maintained her professional composure. "General Vorth confirms exactly what I'm trying to explain to this council. The Scarians aren't using conventional weapons. They're using biological warfare on a planetary scale. Every world they take becomes a resource for creating more bioships, more soldiers, more weapons." She changed the display to show tactical projections. "A direct assault will fail because you're fighting an enemy that can adapt in real time. Their bioships share sensory data instantaneously. When you destroy one, the collective learns from that destruction and modifies the others. By the time your third wave attacks, they'll have developed specific countermeasures for your weapons." The Corvani representative, Captain Zixlik, chittered dismissively. "Human paranoia. We have fought hive minds before. Superior technology always prevails." Not against this kind of hive mind, Elena replied, her voice carrying a note of urgency. The Scarians have retained individual creativity while maintaining collective coordination. It's the worst of both worlds for anyone fighting them. They can innovate like individuals but coordinate like a single organism. Admiral Kextar gestured impatiently with two of his arms. Dr. Vasquez, your biological expertise is noted, but warfare requires decisive action, not excessive caution. The Zephyrian fleet has never known defeat. Our plasma cannons can sterilize planets. Our shield technology is impenetrable. We will advance in 3 battle groups, overwhelming their positions before they can respond effectively. Elena pulled up another display, showing the recent battle at Sigma Draconis. Admiral, they've already responded. Look at these engagement records. The Scarians sacrificed an entire biofleet at Sigma Draconis just to analyze Zephyrian shield frequencies. Now they're producing weapons specifically designed to penetrate your defenses. The chamber fell silent for a moment as the implications sank in. Then General Vorth's laughter echoed through the communication array. The human sees clearly, but too late. We have already learned much from your previous encounters. Each battle teaches us more about your limitations. Elena felt her heart racing, but she forced herself to remain calm. She activated a final set of displays, showing biological countermeasures and alternative tactics. There is a way to fight them effectively. Biowarfare can be countered with biowarfare. Humans have extensive experience with biological systems, disease control, and ecosystem management. We can develop targeted pathogens that disrupt their collective consciousness matrix. We can create environmental toxins that break down their bioships at the molecular level. The silence that followed was different this time. Not thoughtful, but dismissive. Admiral Kextar's crystalline features somehow managed to convey disdain. Chemical warfare? Biological weapons? These are the desperate tools of primitive species. The Zephyrian Alliance has evolved beyond such crude methods. Captain Zixlick's chittering took on a mocking tone. Perhaps humans still think like the bacteria they once were. We prefer civilization. Elena felt her cheeks flush, but she pressed on. This isn't about being primitive. It's about using the right tool for the job. You can't fight a biological enemy with purely technological weapons. It's like trying to cure an infection with hammers instead of antibiotics. The ethereal representative, a shifting cloud of luminous gas named Veltar, pulsed with colors that the translator rendered as amused condescension. The human analogy is quaint. But we are not bacteria, and this is not an infection. This is war, and war is won through superior force applied intelligently. Commander Thane Morrison, Elena's colleague in the human delegation, leaned forward in his chair. The grizzled veteran had fought in 3 interstellar conflicts and knew the signs of impending disaster. Dr. Vasquez isn't just offering theory. We've run extensive simulations based on her biological models. A coordinated biowarfare campaign could neutralize the Scarian collective consciousness within weeks. Admiral Kextar's 4 eyes narrowed. Commander Morrison, humans have been part of this alliance for barely 50 years. Your species has won exactly 3 minor conflicts against pirates and raiders. You lack the experience to comprehend warfare on this scale. Elena stepped forward one more time, her voice carrying quiet desperation. Admiral, I'm begging you to consider the biological factors. The Scarians aren't just another enemy. They're an existential threat to every independent species in this galaxy. If we don't stop them here, with the right methods, there may not be another chance. The alien leaders exchanged glances, their various forms of communication creating a brief babel of sounds and lights. When Admiral Kextar spoke again, his tone carried the finality of absolute authority. The Alliance appreciates human concern, but this council has made its decision. We will proceed with conventional assault tactics. The combined fleet will launch in 72 hours. Human forces will remain in reserve, providing support functions as assigned. Elena felt the words hit her like a physical blow. Admiral, you're making a mistake that will cost millions of lives. The mistake, Kextar replied coldly, would be allowing fear to paralyze us into inaction. This council is dismissed. As the alien representatives began filing out, Elena remained standing beside her holographic displays, the weight of ignored warnings heavy on her shoulders. Commander Morrison approached, his weathered face showing both sympathy and determination. "Elena, they're not going to listen," he said quietly. "But that doesn't mean we can't be ready." She looked up at him, seeing the same grim understanding in his eyes. "Thane, if I'm right about the Skarian capabilities, then we'd better make sure the human fleet is prepared for biological warfare," he finished. "Can you have countermeasures ready in 72 hours? Elena's mind was already racing through the possibilities. Antiviral protocols, atmospheric scrubbers, genetic isolation procedures, targeted bioweapons. "It'll be close, but yes. The Colonial Defense Force Medical Corps has been working on theoretical countermeasures since I first identified the Skarian bio-integration." Morrison nodded grimly. "Then we prepare for the worst and hope I'm wrong about how this is going to end." As they left the council chamber, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that she had just witnessed the beginning of a catastrophe. The alien, species that had dismissed human warnings so casually, were about to discover that ignorance, no matter how technologically advanced, was still fatal. General Vorth's final transmission echoed in her memory. Soon, all will be part of the greater design. The countdown to disaster had begun, and only the humans seemed to understand what was coming. When silence becomes thunder, the first distress signals arrived 36 hours after the Alliance fleet had launched their grand assault. "Commander." Morrison stood in the human command center aboard the Terra's shield, watching the communication arrays light up with panic-coded transmissions. Each message told the same horrifying story. The Skarian bioweapons were devastating the alien fleets in ways no one had anticipated. "Sir, we're receiving emergency broadcasts from Admiral Kekstar's flagship," reported Lieutenant Chen, her voice tight with tension. "They're requesting immediate medical assistance. Reports indicate some kind of pathogenic attack affecting multiple crew members." Elena looked up from her biolab workstation, where she had been preparing countermeasures. For the past 3 days, dark circles under her eyes showed the strain of working with minimal sleep. But her hands remained steady as she loaded another batch of synthetic antibodies into the deployment canisters. "It's starting exactly as I predicted. The Skarians didn't just attack their ships, they attacked their biology." Morrison activated the main tactical display. The holographic battlefield showed a picture of absolute chaos. Zephyrian crystal ships drifted dark and silent, their once brilliant hulls now covered with strange organic growths. Corvani vessels spun out of control as their insectoid crews succumbed to neural parasites. The gaseous ethereals were perhaps suffering worst of all. Their ship bodies were being converted into something alien and hostile. "How long before they reach us?" Morrison asked, though he already knew the answer would be measured in hours, not days. "The Skarian biofleet is moving faster than projected," Elena replied, adjusting the parameters on her biological scanner. "They're not just using the ships they brought. They're converting the Alliance vessels into part of their collective. Every ship they capture becomes a weapon pointed at the survivors." The communication array crackled with Admiral Kekstar's voice, though it sounded strange, hollow and distorted. "Any Allied vessels, immediate assistance required, crew modifications, uncontrolled biological, cannot stop the changes." Elena's blood ran cold. "Thane, cut that transmission now. It's not Admiral Kekstar anymore." Morrison's hand slammed the emergency cutoff. "Explain." "The Skarians can mimic voices once they've integrated a nervous system," Elena said, her fingers flying over the bioscanner controls. "They were using Kekstar's voice to lure us closer. If we had responded to that distress call, we would have flown directly into a trap." Lieutenant Chen's face went pale. "Sir, we're detecting massive biosignatures approaching from Vector 7. Multiple contacts moving in perfect formation." The main display shifted to show the approaching Skarian fleet. What Elena saw made her stomach turn. The alien ships had been completely transformed, their clean technological lines now replaced by pulsing organic curves. Skarian biomatter, had grown over and through the hulls like a fungus, creating hybrid vessels that combined the worst aspects of both civilizations. "They're not just conquering," Elena whispered. "They're evolving. Each species they absorb makes them stronger." Morrison studied the tactical display with the eye of a veteran commander. "Elena, whatever countermeasures you've prepared, we need them now. We're looking at odds of about 50 to 1. Elena activated her biowarfare systems, watching as the human fleet's ships began deploying her carefully designed countermeasures. Clouds of engineered viruses spread between the vessels, creating invisible barriers designed to disrupt Scarian biointegration. Atmospheric scrubbers hummed to life, ready to neutralize airborne pathogens. Most importantly, the targeted bioweapons she had developed over the past 3 days began loading into specially modified torpedo tubes. "The key is their collective consciousness matrix," Elena explained as she worked. "The Scarians share information through biological networks, pheromone trails, electrical impulses, even quantum-entangled proteins. If we can disrupt those networks, we can make them fight as individuals instead of a collective." The first wave of bioships entered weapons range, and Elena held her breath. This would either validate 3 days of frantic preparation or prove that humanity's last stand was about to end in absorption. Morrison gave the order. "All ships deploy biowarfare packages. Target the organic components, not the technological ones." The human fleet responded with precision born from desperate preparation. Instead of traditional plasma bolts or kinetic projectiles, they fired clouds of engineered retroviruses, protein-dissolving enzymes, and neural disruptors. The bioweapons spread through the Scarian formation like antibodies attacking an infection. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The leading bioships began to convulse as their organic components turned against themselves. The hybrid vessels that had once moved with perfect coordination now flew in chaotic patterns as their collective consciousness networks dissolved. "It's working," breathed Lieutenant Chen. "The biosignatures are fluctuating wildly." Elena watched, her bioscanners with intense focus. "The viral load is breaking down their cellular cohesion, but we need to press the advantage before they adapt." As if responding to her words, some of the Scarian bioships began to change again. Their organic hulls shifted and reformed, developing what looked like biological armor against the human countermeasures. The collective was learning, just as Elena had predicted. "Second wave incoming," reported Chen. "These ones look different, more heavily defended." Elena's mind raced through the biological possibilities. The Scarians were adapting, faster than she had hoped, but not faster than she had prepared for. Deploy the secondary package. Target their adaptation mechanisms directly. The human fleet launched a different kind of biowarfare. Viruses designed not to kill, but to corrupt. Instead of attacking Scarian biology, they attacked the Scarian ability to modify their biology. Genetic chaos agents spread through the approaching bioships, turning their greatest strength into a fatal weakness. The second wave of bioships began to tear themselves apart as their own adaptation processes ran wild. Organic hulls sprouted useless growths, neural networks formed random connections, and the collective consciousness dissolved into biological static. Commander Morrison allowed himself a grim smile. "Elena, remind me never to doubt your paranoia." Again. Before Elena could respond, the communication array activated with a transmission from the remaining Alliance survivors. Captain Zixlik's voice came through, though the proud Corvani now sounded broken and desperate. "Human vessels, we require immediate assistance. Our fleets are gone. Admiral Kekstar is changed." Elena checked her bioscanners, confirming the transmission was genuine. "It's really him this time. The Scarians haven't integrated him yet." Morrison opened the channel. "Captain Zixlik, this is Commander Morrison. We're deploying biowarfare countermeasures. Can your remaining ships handle atmospheric modifications?" "Anything," Zixlik replied. "We will accept any human assistance. Our arrogance, our mistake. The bioweapons are unlike anything we could have imagined." Elena was already preparing the next phase of her countermeasures. We can extend our biowarfare umbrella to protect the survivors, but they'll need to follow our tactical protocols exactly. One mistake and the Scarians will adapt to our countermeasures. The next several hours became a desperate dance of biological warfare and adaptation. Elena directed the human fleet like a conductor leading an orchestra, timing each bioweapon deployment to maximum effect while monitoring Scarian adaptation patterns. The enemy collective kept trying to evolve past her countermeasures, but Elena stayed one step ahead by targeting their evolutionary processes themselves. The tide began to turn when Elena deployed her masterstroke, a bioweapon that didn't attack Scarian biology at all, but instead attacked their quantum-entangled communication proteins. The collective consciousness that made them so dangerous suddenly became their greatest vulnerability. Neural cascade failure detected across the entire Scarian biofleet, reported Chen, her voice filled with amazement. They're losing collective cohesion on a massive scale. Elena watched her bioscanners with satisfaction as the Scarian ships began behaving like confused individuals instead of a coordinated swarm. Without their collective intelligence, they were just large, slow targets for the human fleet's conventional weapons. The battle ended not with a massive explosion, but with a gradual dissolution. The Scarian bioships simply fell apart as their biological systems collapsed in cascade failures. The converted Alliance vessels reverted to technological debris as the organic components died and sloughed away. General Vorth's voice came through one final transmission, though it sounded confused and individual rather than part of a greater collective. How did the small humans accomplish this? We are the greater design. We are evolution incarnate. Elena keyed her own microphone. General, you made the same mistake as the Alliance. You assumed that advanced meant superior. Sometimes the old ways work better than the new ones. Sometimes bacteria win against hammers. The aftermath was a mixture of triumph and tragedy. The Scarian threat had been neutralized, but at a terrible cost. Entire Alliance fleets had been lost, and thousands of beings had died because their leaders were too proud to listen to warnings from a quiet human scientist. In the days that followed, Elena found herself in the uncomfortable position of being hailed as the savior of multiple civilizations. The same alien leaders who had dismissed her expertise as primitive paranoia now called her a genius. The irony was not lost on her. Admiral Kextar, recovered from Scarian biomodification treatments, approached her in the medical bay where she was analyzing the biological debris from the battle. His crystalline features seemed somehow humbled by the experience. Dr. Vasquez, he said, his voice carrying none of its former arrogance. I owe you an apology. We all do. Your warnings could have saved thousands of lives if we had listened. Elena looked up from her microscope, her expression thoughtful. Admiral, the important thing is that we learned from this. The galaxy is full of threats we don't understand yet. Next time, maybe we should listen to all perspectives before deciding we know best. Kextar nodded slowly. The Alliance Council has voted unanimously to establish a new xenobiological warfare division. They want you to lead it. Elena considered the offer, then smiled slightly. I'll accept, but on one condition. Next time someone raises concerns that sound impossible, we investigate them seriously, no matter how quiet the voice that speaks them. As the human fleet began the journey home, Elena stood on the observation deck watching the stars. The quiet human who had been ignored and mocked had saved the galaxy through patience, preparation, and the stubborn refusal to let arrogance silence the truth. In the end, that was perhaps the most human trait of all, the ability to be right, even when everyone else thought you were wrong, and to keep fighting even when no one else believed the fight was worth having. The silence had indeed become thunder, and the galaxy would never underestimate the quiet humans again.